3, 2, 1. You alive? Well, I am alive, and hopefully you are too. How you doing, friends? Ernie here, and this is the Zero Dash. And hopefully you are too. All right. Friends, Ernie here. We have a problem. Zero Dash. Happens all the time. Hold on. Why can't I find it? Let's try this. I have another window open somewhere, and I have no idea where it is. But the way you fix it is you just close the whole browser. I have a browser that might have, 50, 60 tabs open. And one of them is keyed in on this show. That's right, watching myself. All right, let's start all over. You do this. How you doing, friends? Ernie here, and this is the Zero-DTE podcast. Also a live stream on YouTube. I don't know why, but I have an itchy nose. Does that mean I'm going to get into a fight? Yep, itchy nose. It is Monday. I had to actually look up at the calendar and say, yeah, it's Monday, Ernie. Wake up. You're with it today. Today is Monday, October 25th. And last I checked, what are there, 31 days in October or 30? I don't know that rhyme. Do you know that rhyme? If you do, that tells you what number of days are in each month, because I have no idea. You know what I need? I need coffee. Here I am. It's 15 minutes before the market's going to close, and I need coffee. Today, I'm going to talk about something that may have the potential. It may have the potential to change your life. If you listen closely and if you accept what I'm going to say, it's one of those life truths that you know it's true, you know it's happened to you, you know it's the reason for a good deal of your trading success, but you won't admit it. You'll never admit it. You know it though. So here's your opportunity to let it come out. Why you've really been successful in any one period of time as a trader. Now, I'm not saying or making the assumption, because that would be really overreaching, that you are overall successful in your trading, because the chances are, if you're a day trader or a retail trader, that you're a loser, pretty much. But you might have gotten lucky this year or the year before on maybe one or two trades that you put on. Well, let's say that we'll just wink and say, yes, you put them on, or that were put on by accident or left on because of your sloppiness. And they ended up being the biggest winning trades, not only of your year, but possibly your career. And of course, you'd love to just make and build a story around this and tell everybody how incredibly intelligent you were, that you put on this trade that made 2, 3, 4, 5,000% return on your risk. And it was all because you forgot to close that darn trade, or you got assigned some options contract and you didn't realize it until a week later. And you were lucky enough that the market took off. I can almost guarantee that your biggest trades are exactly that. Wouldn't it be nice, though? You know, that might be like a real eye-opener. So you're working this systematic strategy, and you've got all your parameters down. You understand the carry of there, where the value is, where the momentum is. You've got all these economic indicators, and you're doing all the right thing. You've got an arbitrage going, and your little black box is feeding you trades, and and none of that is working. And then one day you wake up and you say, "Holy crap!" Maybe a Monday morning. "Holy crap! There's $100,000 extra in my account." Don't laugh, because it happens. As a matter of fact, there used to be a trader on the S&P E-mini floor, one of the floor traders. They referred to him as number one. And he was number one for a long time. He was very prolific, and he traded a huge amount of money. But it all came to pass. The reason why he got into that position in the first place was because of an errant trade. He was actually trading gold, and he thought he was busted out of an account because of a trade that he made. He came back the next day, and there was $50,000 in there. He had hung an order and thought it was a bad order, that it was busted. And then from that, he developed some sort of, extra sense. He started to do more of these hanging orders. Orders that he thought he would never make, that they didn't comport to his strategy. They were way outside the realm of possibilities. They had unbelievable risk to reward. In other words, very small risk if they were to hit, and very large reward if they were to run. They were hit and runs. And so he did this, and he built them up and built them and built them, and then he had such a large amount of money that he was actually controlling markets. Yeah, and he was number one. That's what they referred to him. They never referred to this guy by name. It was just number one. So when you listen to the floor squawker, he would refer to him as number one. But that's how he came to be. That's how he became to be number one in the E-mini by a hanging order he had in gold futures that he thought was busted. Amazing. So I am willing to bet that your biggest trades were also mistakes. They were orders that you left on. You're supposed to, at the end of the day, check your order book, make sure nothing's out there. Sometimes we get lazy, or we get distracted and we forget. Or it could have been an assignment and you didn't know about the assignment. Particularly a futures assignment is usually the typical way it happens. And then you wake up the next day and you've got this, it's one or the other. Either you got lucky and you've got a lot of extra money, or your account is wiped out. Most people, they do this often enough that their errant ways, their stupidity ends up busting them. Or bringing them down to such a low level that they do whatever they can to try to grind their way back, and then ultimately totally bust the account. It's a never-ending story. This is what most day traders are doing. Some of them think that they have a handle on things for a little while, and they're making some profits, and then it all collapses on them again. But let me get to what I really wanted to talk about. And at first I was going to talk about the difference between, what is better, being a systematic trader or a discretionary trader. A systematic trader being one that essentially has a black box. And the black box, whatever it does, pumps out trades, and you execute those trades. And a discretionary trader is someone who doesn't have a black box, or has a black box and then decides which trades they want to cherry pick, or variations on the trade, or just uses their intuition or their research. And, which is better? that was what I was going to talk about. But let me just say that most data shows, believe it or not, that the discretionary trader over the long term, and when you look at prop trading firms that have both discretionary and systematic traders, you will find that the discretionary trader tends to outperform the systematic trader. And you might think, but how can this be? All that research and calculation and computing. How can a person beat the computers? Well, you have to go back and remember that it was people that programmed the computers to trade that way in the first place. And for the most part, they're trying to use algorithms or technical analysis that have no business being put into an algorithm. But they think it does because they did the back testing and they did the forward walking. They did the Monte Carlo tests. And it still loses. And then every once in a while, they also will make an error, either a programming error or the discretionary trader will hang a trade by accident. And after a while, there will be a certain number of people that will recognize that and admit to themselves and admit to others that the trade that actually made them money that year was a mistake. It was a hanging order. I keep on saying hanging order. What is a hanging order? A hanging order is one that you don't notice because it is so far outside of the realm of possibilities. You never would have looked there. You never would have said, oh, I got this trade on and it's 100 handles below the market price. I would have never put that trade on. I didn't even know it was there. And then the next day, the market crashes or drops suddenly 104 points and triggers the order. And then a little V bottom happens, comes right back up, and you're sitting there with 100 handles of profit. Yep. Happens a lot. It happens so much that I can say that almost every trader, if you've been in the business long enough, this has happened to you. And these have, in fact, been your best trades. They have. I know it. I know it for a fact. I've seen it 1,000 times. Of course, most people won't ever consider that that could be a viable strategy. A viable strategy. Uh-oh, got the hiccups. A viable strategy. Placing something so outside of the realm of possibility that it was just ludicrous. It would never happen. Of course, if you always think back to those things that do happen that sink you, you are saying exactly the same thing. It will never happen. There's the bell. So why wouldn't these things, these outliers, never happen? They do, and they have. And you've both profited from them and got busted by them. What if you did them on purpose? There's an idea. Now, there can be a little bit of a methodology to it. You can get extreme, and if it doesn't hit, you haven't lost anything. But if it does, you could potentially make a huge, huge return. And in fact, it's we take a variation of this strategy or this idea and turn it into a strategy. And in fact, our last 2 trades were because of hanging orders today and also on, was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday. I think it was Friday. They were hanging orders. What do I mean by that? Well, we picked a price that was at least a couple of standard deviations below the current price and put an order there. Actually, it was Wednesday, right? It was Wednesday. And Wednesday, we hung an order because we weren't going to be awake. We thought, or I thought, that price would drop overnight. I had no idea how much, but I put it low enough down where I thought, you know what, if it dropped this much, I would be really happy with this trade. Never really thinking that, that's going to happen. There's a possibility, of course, and price was already starting to retract, but I wasn't going to wait up. It was already 10 o'clock. I was tired, and I had no idea when it was going to happen. Would it have happened in half an hour? 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, who knows? And, I figured, if it hits overnight, cool. I'll take it. So we hung the trade, and it hit. We get up the next morning. We're all in profit. Very nice. We manage our profits into the close. This is one of those deals where we're in this very low volatility regime, and trying to manage trades or trying to derive the signal out of all the noise is extremely difficult, because the noise and the signal obfuscate one another. The noise is almost as big as the signal or bigger than the signal. In other words, there's no signal. So it's either you don't trade or you do something that's ridiculous that if it hits, you're going to make money. If it doesn't, you didn't lose anything. So that's what we did on Wednesday night. That's right. Yeah, it was Wednesday night. That was a good day. It was a really good day. And then we did something very similar this morning as well. Now, it wasn't as extreme, and we were awake. However, we got up in the morning. From Sunday night, the futures had already started to move up. We were banging on the door, or I'm sorry, on the ceiling of a new all-time high that was set almost a month ago, or maybe even a little bit more than a month ago. We reset it on Friday, that's right. And so that had established a new all-time high on Friday. And we were banging on that ceiling, It was coming up overnight and then hitting in the morning. But we're not sure whether or not we could get into there. And there was no place, when a market is moving up like that, where do you get in? That's going to give yourself a good risk to reward. There's really no place. The only place that we could get in is if it were to retrace or come down all of a sudden, right? We just we conjure this up. We look at Friday and say, hey, Friday it dropped down like that. What if it did that again this morning, before or right at the market open or something like that? Wouldn't that be cool if we could capture it there? Then we could put on this really nice butterfly trade, and it would likely pop back up because, and why does it do this? Of course, everybody has a reason, that there are market makers out there that are trying to grab your stops or something stupid like that. But who cares? I don't care. All I care about is getting a good risk to reward trade. So I said, well, look, if I were to put a trade on right now and try to trade based on the market as it is with the low volatility, I can't really get a good risk to reward out of that. I can't. My risk is just way too much. However, if I had the same trade and my risk was, say, 1/3 or 1/4 of what we're doing, I would be good with that, because that was something I could live with. And if it worked out, then that would be cool. If it didn't, so you took a chance. You put a small amount of money for potentially a very large return. So that's what we did. We hung a trade. We hung an order. And someone had asked, well, how do you choose that, Ernie? I mean, do you use some sort of calculation with the Greeks? No. However, it does require us to have an understanding of the Greeks. Now, we're dealing with option premium collection strategies, right? So we know that if price were to pull back, then volatility would move up, right? If volatility moves up, then premium starts expanding. And that would, in fact, then raise our risk to reward. So our risk would become smaller, our reward would become much larger. So just the mere fact of price dropping does that all in one swoop. It would get us in at a lower price, expand volatility, give us a much better risk to reward. In this case, almost 3 times better, or actually more than 3 times better. And you just choose. How do you choose where to put it in? Well, you put it in low enough where you think that it's going to find support. And the best place to find support is usually on the edge of a volume node, either a local volume node or a new or recent volume node, or one that's been well established over a period of time, or both, right? And so that's what we did. Put it down there. Actually, I put it a little bit above that. and it came all the way down and went past it. But now we were already in the trade at a really good price that was great, and it went lower. And so we were able to get in again at an even better price and bring our cost basis down. And so that's how we took the trade. And today's trade, let's see, I think I got in for a total of maybe $2.80, something like that. Got out at $9.50. That's a pretty good return. That's a darn good return. It's almost 400%. And all because I hung the trade. I just hung it out there. Hung it out to dry. And is that a strategy? Well, it is. It's but it's also something that you don't know if it's going to happen. You're not expecting it. It could. I would say that in these cases, it seems like it happens more often than not, but you don't know if it's going to happen that day or not. So, and you had nothing to lose because the alternative was to play in a mud pie, right? Play in a mud pie that had no real opportunity. So it was either do that or not trade at all. So, say what the hell? Instead of not trading at all, I'll put an unreasonable trade on, and if it hits, we make money, and hey, everybody's happy. That is the concept of hanging a trade. Now, this is not a new concept by us. I've done this many times, and my mentor, man, he made a living off of hanging trades. Oh my God! I mean, he would hang trades in bonds and gold and platinum and the E-mini and whatever, the VIX, whatever he could. He would hang trades that were just so outside of the realm of possibilities. And when they hit, it was like free money. And those were his best trades, rather than the grinding trades that you would do on a daily basis, thinking that you're smarter than the market. So that's what a hanging trade is. Now, again, you can put some I guess, theory or sense or swag, what I call a scientific wild ass guess swag, and put it someplace where you think, there is a possibility. And like I said, the bottom of a volume node or the middle of a volume well, what some people call a low value node, are very good places to put it. Put it 2-3 standard deviations down below the current price. That might be another good place. Whatever you think is unreasonable, do the unreasonable. The unreasonable is what usually works. Because, as I said earlier, it seems that the unreasonable is what has been historically your best trades. I know that for a fact. It's the truth with just about everybody. Except for those people that really know what they're doing. They seem to make money no matter what. We can do that too, if you have the right strategy and you know your edge. So anyways, that's what we do. That's how we combat situations when the situation looks, I won't say dire, but just unattractive. The market looks unattractive, so let's put on an unattractive trade, right? And if it hits, all's good. If it doesn't, then we live to see another day. No loss, no less worry. The hanging trade. Hang a trade. Give it a shot. And go nuts with it. Because what is the risk behind putting an unreasonable trade on? The risk is virtually nothing. Other than perhaps maybe tying up a little bit of money for putting something so far out of the money. And just for a period of time, just to see if it's like fishing, When you're fishing, as a professional fisher, I'm sure you can use your swag to put the right bait, the right hook, the right lure in the right spot, in the right pond at the right time of the year, etc., to increase your chances. We can do that too. But ultimately, you're putting a worm on a hook and you're throwing it in there, hoping that by chance some big-ass bass is going to come by and see it, smell it, and then eat it. So that's what we do. We fish for trades by hanging trades. There you go. Let's see. Got a question. Mike says, Ernie, from a portfolio perspective, do you solely trade asymmetrically, or do you do a blend of grinding the market and asymmetry? We never grind the market, that's for sure, ever. All of our trades are a kind of a variation on this hanging the trade, but it is an asymmetric trade. But the asymmetry that we do actually has some statistical validity to it. So in our zero DTE trade, we do a lot like what the experienced fisherman does. We put everything in the right context, the right time, the right place, giving us the best odds, understanding the Greeks, understanding how volatility works, how premium expansion works, etc., and then placing our asymmetric trade that has very little risk to potentially a very large reward, and we can make a darn good, consistent return from that. But sometimes the market, I gotta turn this thing off. The market is unreasonable, and no matter what you do, you can't find that perfect fishing hole. So what you have to do is you have to find that deep, deep fishing hole that nobody wants to fish. And so you just throw something down into the big crevasse, and hopefully something will find your worm. That's pretty much it. I would say that our hanging of trades, to answer your question directly, increases probably. It's probably the only time we do hanging trades is when we're in this sort of low volatility regime where the VIX is well below that 17 level. That's kind of our line of demarcation. Anything above 17 we call the Goldilocks zone. When it's below 17, we have to be much more creative and hope for at least some short-term volatility or some kind of anomaly. The Fed does something that upsets the markets that we can grab a hold of or whatever. Other than that, we can invent trades. We can invent things that, because our momentum is in one direction, we know which way we're going to go. And in this case, when low volatility occurs or sustained low volatility, the direction is up. So we're looking for pullbacks. How far to pull back, we don't know. We could sit there and sort of calculate, what it would be, but your calculation would always be way too short, right? You would hit it and then it would go way below and you'd be underwater and you'd be crying. So we do things that are unreasonable. A swag. And our swag, over the two swags that we've put on in the last 2 weeks have both been winners. Actually, I think almost all of the swags or hanging trades that we've put on have been winners. It seems to be something other than a low probability trade. Yep, well, that's it. Sounds crazy, I know. But what do you care if it works? That's all I've got to say. So anyways, of course, this isn't our whole strategy. Our whole strategy is much, much more than that. But when you have these type of situations, this type of volatility regime is what I call it, you have to resort to these sort of unreasonable measures. Well, I guess unreasonable isn't the right word. Off angle, asymmetric, whatever else you want to call them, the hanger. And that's what you rely on because you've got nothing to lose. You're not going to dig into your losses here. I mean, losses are virtually non-existent on a hanging trade. It's almost all win if, in fact, it hits. And usually the biggest wins. That's the crazy part. When everything else is dire and there's or mud, you come out with this sort of shiny little thing. All right, that's it. If you'd like to take the trial for the 0-DTE service, trust me, it's way, way more than just hanging trades. I thought I'd put that out there because it's just an interesting artifact of our trading. But if you'd like to try, have a 4-week trial, go to 0-dte.com/try. That's TRY. 0-dte.com/try. You get a 4-week trial. If at the end of that 4 weeks, you don't think that you've learned a lot, or if you think that let me put it the other way around. If you think that you've learned a lot and that there's a lot more to learn, then join the membership, and then I'll rebate the cost of the trial. In either case, you're going to get an outstanding education and exposure to what everybody in the service now, I think, agrees is one of the best strategies they've ever seen. It's the best strategy I've ever seen. I've been around for a while. So there you go. Hope you all have a great day. Peace. We'll see you Wednesday. Off button, end stream, end.